Now, the Met Police is still facing a huge financial headache despite the Mayor and central government increasing the amount of money the force gets. Sadiq Khan is injecting an extra £83 million. But when you do the maths, it leaves the Met £260 million short and the Commissioner deciding which services he might have to cut. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
Shoplifting is London's fastest growing crime wave. Offences are up 50% in a year. When Gavin Fonte helped himself to meat at a shop in Colindale, he had no idea plainclothes officers were waiting outside. Earlier this month, he was jailed for 5 months. More police on the streets was one of Sadiq Khan's key election promises.
We can go from rowing against the tide of a Tory government to having the winds of a Labour government at our backs.
But a fresh update from the Mayor about the Met's budget paints a less rosy picture. City Hall announced today the Met would get a further £10 million of council taxpayers' money, plus additional funding from the government. But Scotland Yard said it wasn't enough, and there would still have to be cuts. The top-up announced by Sir Sadiq Khan amounts to an extra £83 million, taking the Met's total budget for next year to almost £1.2 billion. That still leaves a £260 million shortfall, according to the Commissioner, who in December warned of a worst-case scenario.
This is an actual reduction in the headcount of those policing London by 2,300 officers.
Last month he revised the figure.
I haven't seen anything to suggest that we won't be losing probably more than 1,000 officers and staff.
Today, a spokesperson for the Met said it was facing substantial tough choices. The dog section, mounted branch, flying squad and Royal Parks Police are all thought to be in the firing line.
The one which is exercising people locally is cuts to the Royal Parks Police, which people might think is a nice to have, but it's an absolutely vital part of London's policing. They police an area which is roughly equal to the size of both Heathrow and Gatwick Airport combined. So to lose all policing from that massive space will be a huge blow.
So how many police officers will the Met lose? The Mayor wasn't saying.
There are going to be some tough choices the Commissioner's got to make. He's trying really hard to prioritise neighbourhood policing, to prioritise public protection, to prioritise the response the public receive. But I'm afraid one of the consequences of 14 years of austerity is, I'm afraid, tough decisions.
The exact figure should become clear in the coming weeks. Both the Met and the Mayor say they're hoping the government's spending review in June will mean more money. Simon Harris, ITV News, City Hall.
Good evening. People living by the River Wandle in Croydon are being advised not to touch or allow their pets into the water. The warning comes after thousands of litres of diesel leaked into the river from a nearby bus depot. Birds have been seen coated in oil and no one knows for sure how far the pollution has spread. The Environment Agency and London Fire Brigade were deployed to limit the damage to the river and its wildlife, while the local MP has described it as an environmental disaster. Here's our correspondent, Simon Harris.
3 coots sit on branches close to the water's edge. It's not their natural habitat, but their home, the River Wandle in South London, has been polluted with diesel, and they're caked in oil.
They should be in the water, diving, feeding, just swimming up and down. But at the minute, they're in the trees. It's too much diesel in there.
Rosemary normally allows her dog Callie into the Wandle.
Girl.
Not today.
Yesterday I had to keep her out, so I have to bring water with me and let her have water here so that she doesn't go in the river.
4 miles away, the evidence of an oil spill is still outside Thornton Heath bus garage. Yesterday, diesel poured along the gutters. These pictures were captured by a resident after the oil had been treated with chemicals and a form of grit to congeal it.
The oil was running down here, ran into the storm drain. I mean, when I saw it, they'd put all of the salt and stuff down on it, so it was soaking it up. And then they came by about 10, 11 o'clock last night to come and jet wash what they could away.
It's thought 4,000 litres of diesel leaked into the river through the storm drains.
It's an environmental disaster, really. It's 4,000 litres of diesel have entered the River Wandle, and you know, we saw birds caked in it last night, and they've all vacated the river now, so it's an environmental disaster.
The Wandle is one of London's rare chalk streams. This is where the River Wandle flows through the Watermeads Nature Reserve. And even before you see the film of oil on the surface, you're hit by the strong smell of diesel. In recent years, the Wandle has become a much cleaner river, largely thanks to the work of local activists.
I'm devastated. I spend a lot of time on the river. I help out clearing the river, and I'm seeing birds that are not going to survive.
This afternoon, booms were being put across the river to try to stop the oil travelling downstream. The Environment Agency said it was assessing the impact of the spill.
Obviously, a pollution event of this sort is potentially devastating for the ecology of a river. Diesel is particularly toxic, out of all the oil products.
Tonight, Merton Council urged people not to touch or let dogs into the river. TfL said an investigation was underway into how the oil spill happened. Simon Harris, ITV News, Morden.
Next tonight, a committee meeting at City Hall meant to scrutinise the Mayor's budget proposals turned into a political punch-up with tempers flaring and insults thrown. Sir Sadiq Khan blamed big funding gaps in public services on his predecessor, but Conservative Assembly members were quick to disagree. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has more.
Tribal politics are a hallmark of meetings at City Hall. Today's bad-tempered exchanges were over the council tax increase and cuts to the Met. There is no love lost between Sir Sadiq Khan and his one-time election rival, Susan Hall.
You told us if we had a Labour government, everything in the world would be rosy. And to have less police officers is not what Londoners want, is it?
We'll still have more officers than we had when I first became mayor.
Things became even frostier.
Since you have cut the meeting down and have refused to see us for longer than an hour, which I think is a damn disgrace, can you actually answer the specific questions I'm putting to you? What now is going to be cut?
I think it's unwise to give a running commentary on what choices the Commissioner's going to make.
I can only imagine you don't know, which is shocking, bearing in mind you're the Police and Crime Commissioner.
When Boris Johnson was mayor, he cut council tax, but his successor said that contributed to the Met's financial crisis.
It is the case that because of the previous mayor's decision, the Met Police Service receives less money than they otherwise would.
You're saying Londoners should pay an extra £150 a year?
Well, I'm really grateful we have a dividing line now. Tories who want to cut Met Police funding, Labour who want to invest in Met Police funding, the Party of Law and Order cutting funding from the Met Police Service.
Mr. Mayor.
The Party of Law and Order wanting to reduce the ability of our police officers to do a hard job. And
prompt for a rant.
We now know. We now know. And you can be abusive as the chair, but we now know the facts.
I don't think anything that I said was abusive, Mr. Mayor. I resent that implication.
Next month's increase in tube and train fares sparked another clash.
God knows what they'd have got up by if heaven forbid, Boris Johnson was mayor.
Well, he'd be doing a better job than you are, Mr. Mayor. Would you like to say sorry to all the businesses in London who are going to have to lay off staff, that's Londoners, because of this National Insurance employment hike?
What's really important is those businesses want a good public transport system in London, which is what we are providing. I can't run away from the fact, though, that one of the inheritances of the new government is a black hole to the tune of £22 billion. And there's two ways to fill a black hole. You either raise more revenues or you make cuts.
I'd love to throw him in it, Hall can be heard saying. Simon Harris, ITV News.